Introducing Inside Retail with Marty Higgins. Insider news and engaging conversations with cannabis leaders, brought to you by Urbana and highly capitalized network, navigating the cannabis retail landscape with innovative strategies and customer-centric solutions. Join Marty Higgins as he brings you insider stories and cannabis retail market trends. This is Inside Retail with Marty Higgins.
Hi there, this is Mark Collins for Highly Capitalized. I'm here with Marty Higgins from Urbana, the CEO of Urbana, and Jay Czarkowski, the founder of Canna Advisors. Here we're going to look at what are the differences and similarities in some of the markets that we see across the cannabis industry in the United States. We're going to do a deep dive and look at California, and we'll have the perspective of an investor from Jay Czarkowski, who's also not only an investor, but he's been hands-on running a lot of the businesses that he's been operating in. Marty, I've known Marty as a friend when I was the CFO at Grupo Flor. We were very jealous of Urbana and how they managed to keep expanding, keep growing, despite all the challenges in the market. So without further ado, Jay, I would like to just to introduce you or ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your journey in cannabis.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me. So Diane and I opened one of Colorado's first dispensaries way back in 2009, back when it was just the Wild West. Had a number of grow operations. People used to say, wow, must have been a real visionary. And the truth is we really just, got lucky and, you had to have a little bit of a screw loose back then to get involved. But we hung in there. And then, of course, I founded Canna Advisors 12 years ago, M&A firm Bonfire, recruiting firm H2 Talent. We've retained ownership in a number of licenses that we've won. We've also started a private equity firm 5 years ago called Trailhead. We made a number of investments, and it's been a wild ride.
That's wonderful. I think that when I look around the industry, when I see someone very active, I always see you. So tell us a little bit, Marty, about your journey. I've always admired your, you come from a background of restaurants, right?
Restaurants is in my early years, in my 20s, and throughout my 30s was investment real estate and multifamily brokerage. So
wow.
Jay and I have a little bit in common on the real estate side.
That's right. So when I think about Urbana, you've had consumption lounge licenses now for some time, and you seem to be doubling down on that. Could you tell us a little bit more about why you're looking at consumption lounges and what is, the restaurant background given you that makes you point yourself in the direction of consumption lounges? I'm fascinated that you're not selling weed, you're selling hospitality.
Yeah, absolutely. And that hospitality is in the form of an experience where people are going to remember that experience, remember the staff or the event or just the products, and those keep them coming back to that similar experience over a broad, portfolio of stores. But to answer your question, it was really my influence being in the restaurant industry and hospitality that shaped the vision for a different type of retail establishment. And that was the genesis for the idea of pursuing on-site consumption in San Francisco, which existed at that time. And I felt it was a natural extension of the retail experience to offer something and change the way that people consumed cannabis to, at that point, provide, safe access. And I think for today, it's about providing an alternate event, an alternate experience that exists for people to go out and socialize. And as we know, in any concert you've ever been to, people have been socializing with cannabis for a long time. And that was a natural extension to continue that. And it's become a key differentiator. 10 years ago when I got into the space, it was a long shot idea, as I explained to many. And now it is, I believe, the next frontier for for retail, the next frontier for service and hospitality in cannabis. And we're seeing it from everything from, say, the how we evaluate cannabis, both as a consumer and as the brands. And we're seeing that in the Buddhist app, where that's following sort of a wine spectator type of preview. They're also creating events that also shape and look similarly to a wine and spirits type tasting and or social event and engagement. And we continue to be a leader in that area of hospitality, cannabis experience, and retail.
Wow, that's tremendous. So let's take a step back then and ask Jay. Jay, what do you see the market developing and evolving? I know you have such a good, unique perspective with all your investments across multiple different areas of the industry. What's your outlook now and into the future for the cannabis industry in the United States?
Well, the the industry marches forward, Mark, right? We know that the industry, a lot of elements of the industry are hurting right now. At the same time, we know that cannabis consumption, it's not decreasing, right? Across the country, it continues to increase. And if you really think about it objectively, there's a lot of places, even places that claim to have some semblance of legalization, a lot of places in the country that just simply do not have legal regulated access. They have, call it legacy market access, right? So there's a lot of upside still. That said, there's so many problems. There's been this slow drag on the industry with the fact that it's still federally illegal, a slow drag of 280E. And a lot of times I equate it, when you watch like a safari show, right? The lions jump on the water buffalo. At first, that water buffalo shakes those lions off. But eventually, man, that water buffalo is getting tired. And I think there's a lot of folks in the industry that are getting tired right now. So, it's always been a war of attrition in cannabis. Those that succeed, if you want to, succeed with integrity, your head held high, you got to be stubborn and continue to work hard. I know Marty has that, but that's I think the story of those that are going to succeed, those that just continue to hang in there and, overcome these problems, continue to innovate, come up with new experiences, products, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's encouraging. Innovation has been the coaching horses that have pulled a lot of other emerging markets into the new paradigm. And I'm excited to see some of the work that people are doing on rare cannabinoids. But innovation, as you said, is also what we have, as Marty has described. Certainly, I know from speaking with you, Marty, you wouldn't disagree that there's lots of challenges in the market, and that's precisely why when everybody is zigging, you're zagging into consumption lounges. But I wanted to go back to Jay and ask Jay, within your portfolio of investments, what are you doing with them now? Because, for example, you have investments in research companies, are you consolidating those investments, or how are you activating your portfolio to reward yourself from all your investments over the years?
With our direct investments, if we could help and add value, we select to help and add value our portfolio companies. If we can't add value, my philosophy is just to stay the heck out of people's way, right? And let them do their thing. But with a lot of our ownership interests in direct operations and licenses, really the paper licenses is probably the lowest hanging fruit. We've won so many licenses and have ownership in so many, and recently we've been acquiring some licenses on appeal in different states, and those we're just trying to flip. So, I'm looking for as many exits as possible right now. And the lowest hanging fruit for those exits are paper licenses, followed by direct plant touching businesses trying to broker. I mean, that's why we started Bonfire, our M&A firm, a couple of years ago. It's really just to kind of help broker and move operations that we have a direct ownership interest in.
That it sounds very wise, and I'm sure your investment that those companies you invested in, they appreciate you either being hands off if that's their style, or hands on if they need you. So, Marty, when I think about the future too, and what you're doing, I'm seeing trends such as the younger folk are not, going out and getting smashed drunk as me and my generation did when we were younger. Unfortunately, we seem to drink a lot more than the younger people today, and I think that's a good thing. Is this trend towards consuming cannabis instead of alcohol? Are you intercepting that trend, or what do you think about it?
Well, it's been happening for a while. If we looked at it now, a majority of those young people are seeking alternate forms when they go out than other than alcohol. And I think that we've been set up for that. I'd like to say it was premeditated, but really it was designed to offer cannabis consumers a safe place to consume and to enjoy a community. And I think that community is now really starting to increase as people are more comfortable with going out and not drinking, whether it's by choice or they're in an establishment offering drinks, so that they're choosing different events like a cannabis event or a cannabis club to go out and enjoy a comedy night, for instance, and do it with cannabis. And what we're doing is creating those environments, creating those experiences. And it could be open mic, it could be guided meditation, it could be a cannabis farmers market with all of our vendors. No matter what it is, we're creating those experiences to offer today's modern cannabis consumer a different avenue than may have been offered even 10 years ago when we got started in this whole business.
But of course, you'll be, I remember when I worked in coffee, we had very, very high margins on smoothies, on sandwiches, and on coffee, other types of drinks. You're going to be doing similar, you're getting some new revenue streams, right?
Well, that's the idea, and the plan is to have that cafe that enhances and adds a revenue stream. It's certainly something that we started when we first opened, before and underneath the medical marijuana laws, before they changed into the current adult use laws here in California, where we did offer coffees and teas and such. And we envision getting back to that prepackaged food cafe style offerings, and at time being, as well as being able to offer the best bites in town delivered on a menu as we prepare and present to our guests for them to even order in currently. But it's extending that hospitality. It's, as you mentioned, continuing to innovate. I think innovation has been the cornerstone for us when we got into the space. We were hospitality professionals that got into the space. My partner and I, were merchants at heart. And that was a large contrast to who was operating retail establishments 10 years ago. And when we launched that open retail concept versus a jewelry store experience where everything's lock and key behind, where you can touch, engage in the product, engage with a consultant that's going to help you get the most out of your experience. And at the end of the day, that's our mission. And we're going to continue to innovate. We think that our opening of Urbana Oakland with the Cannabis Consumption Lounge, it's going to be there with a stage offering everything from entertainment, as I mentioned, whether it's bands or DJs, to different types of groups being able to come in, and whether it's the run club in the neighborhood, the book club that we're going to start, unique opportunities for cannabis consumers.
I'd like to turn back to Jay and ask Jay, what are the items, or what are the elements that would need to be put back into the industry, or what legal parameters will need to be changed for the industry to survive and to succeed into the future? What would you, if you were the king of the cannabis industry, what are the things that you would put into place to make the industry thrive?
Sure. And thank you. Well, first of all, the industry is going to survive no matter what. But to really make it thrive, Mark, look, we got to get rid of 280E, right? That's just a slow drag across the board. Would free up so much money. it's going to become, federally legal. Maybe Schedule 3 helps. I don't know. But the fact that it's still federally illegal, it just adds to the slow drag, right? It adds to the stigma that makes, a number of things harder for cannabis businesses than other businesses. And look, when cannabis first began to become legal in Colorado, and it's still the case today, I'm sure it's this way in a lot of states, the regulation, the over-regulation, the overtaxing. I know that's a burden in California too. And I'm just going to give an example of regulation. And I get it. When it was brand new, right? It was scary for these governments. Like it has to be tested, it has to be labeled. We need this and that. But I don't buy my cannabis from dispensaries. And I love cannabis. I love to smoke cannabis. The whole family does here, right? Friends and family and neighbors, we all kind of get together at the house here and we smoke cannabis. But we don't buy it from dispensaries in Colorado. I don't want to buy my cannabis in a little plastic jar with these really crowded labels with all this information. You know what? I know somebody that grows it and I get it in a nice, simple glass jar with her logo on it. It's big buds. That's the kind of product that you want to enjoy. So I say, regulation, taxation, and then let's do away with 280E and let's make it legal for crying out loud. Enough's enough.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jay. That's a good view. Marty, what would you say? What would you add to that? And I wanted to ask a follow-up question on top of that. Not only what would you add to what Jay just said, but why aren't other retailers and operators opening consumption lounges? Because obviously, if the market is being challenging, a good piece of advice is to do something different than everybody else is doing. So what is your outlook for the market, Marty? And what's your outlook for consumption lounges? Why isn't anyone else doing them?
Well, just to echo what Jay said, and especially in California, regulation and taxation right now are strangling the industry to some extent. And I think that we get some reprieve from rescheduling in the form of doing away with 280E. And that's going to be a big boon for California operators like myself. Where's the future of retail and hospitality and cannabis? We're already starting to see it happen now, where that intersection is at the corner of hospitality and experience. We're seeing it with cannabis cups at our state fairs. We're seeing it with some of the new clubs in West Hollywood and some of those legacy operations that opened and were ahead of their time, like Lowell's. And we are going to start to see those types of businesses offering a normalized social environment for the cannabis consumer that is seamless, just like we experience it in any other club or bar that we go to, which was always my vision for opening and getting into retail, was to normalize the experience. I just couldn't understand why we treated it any differently than any other product. And that's the future, as we see that retail is in large part normalized in many ways. The socialization and on-site consumption and experiences and events are going to be the next wave of normalization of cannabis, to where your point, Jay, it's federally legal. It's consumed without some of the constraints and oddities that we have and workarounds that exist today. And that's always been my mission.
That's beautiful. Well, there you have it, guys. This is Mark Collins. I've been here with Marty Higgins, the CEO of Urbana, talking about his new store, which is his flagship store, which will have a consumption lounge in Oakland. And I was delighted to spend time on this call too with my old friend Jay Czarkowski. Jay has been a mentor of sorts to me. He's always been a great source of advice. So I really thank you, Jay, for coming on to talk about your investment thesis and your outlook. And I tend to agree. I love those little craft cannabis. And I love buying them from the local vendors. I think that's fun. And now I just wish I had a place to go to enjoy it. And I think that's what Marty is providing a wonderful experience for the cannabis industry. Thank you both very much. And
absolutely,
once again, appreciate your time. You've been listening to Highly Capitalized and Inside Retail with Marty Higgins. Thank you both. And thank you again, Jay Czarkowski, the founder, together with his wonderful wife, Diane, the founders of Canna Advisors. Thank you very much.
Introducing Inside Retail with Marty Higgins. Insider news and engaging conversations with cannabis leaders, brought to you by Urbana and highly capitalized network, navigating the cannabis retail landscape with innovative strategies and customer-centric solutions. Join Marty Higgins as he brings you insider stories and cannabis retail market trends. This is Inside Retail with Marty Higgins.